The ballroom of the Grand Horizon Hotel shimmered with gold light, filled with the sound of clinking glasses and fake laughter. Everyone in San Francisco's tech elite was there to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Hale Dynamics, Ryan Hale's empire. Reporters swarmed the red carpet. Cameras flashed like fireworks. And at the center of it all stood Claire Donovan, radiant in a midnight blue gown, her 6-month pregnant belly barely visible under the silk. She smiled softly, believing tonight would be another proud mo. Ryan had promised this night would be about family. Claire believed him. She had designed the company's first office, worked endless nights drafting presentations, and stood by him when nobody believed in his vision. But as she searched the crowd, her heart skipped. Ryan wasn't looking at her. His gaze was fixed on someone else. Her younger sister, Natalie, stunning in a red backless dress that drew every eye in the war. The host took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the man who redefined biotech innovation, Mr. Ryan Hale." Applause thundered. Ryan took the microphone, flashed that signature confident grin, and began, "Thank you, everyone. Tonight, I want to share not just a success story, but also a truth." Claire smiled politely, expecting him to thank her for years of sacrifice. But then his tone changed. "For too long," he said slowly, "I've lived a lie. I built this company beside someone who betrayed me, someone who stole confidential data from our labs, and that person is my wife, Claire Donovan." Laughter died. Glasses froze midair. Claire's hands trembled. She thought she misheard. Reporters gasped. Flashbulbs exploded. "Ryan, what are you saying?" she whispered, her voice cracking. He didn't look at her. "You've been removed from your position, Claire. Legal action is already in motion. I can't allow a liar and a thief to carry my name any longer." The crowd erupted in whispers. Some stepped away from Claire as if dishonor were contagious. Natalie stepped forward, yes, her own sister, and placed a hand on Ryan's arm like a loyal partner. "Ryan, please," she said, feigning shock. "Don't do this here." He glanced at her with tenderness that burned Claire's soul. "The truth deserves light," he replied. Claire's knees weakened. "You can't mean this. I'm carrying your child." Ryan smirked. "Are you sure it's mine?" The words stabbed deeper than any blade. Cameras captured every tear, every twitch of pain. Claire's vision blurred. The chandelier above swayed like a cruel dream. Laughter, whispers, judgment, all melting into a dizzy echo. Natalie stepped closer, whispering through a smile only Claire could see. "You should have stayed out of his world, sis. Some of us were born to shine brighter." The floor tilted beneath Claire's feet. The crowd became a blur of faces and flashing lights. She clutched her stomach, her breath shallow. Then everything went silent. The last thing she heard before collapsing was Ryan's voice, calm and rehearsed. "Security, please escort Mrs. Donovan out." And as she fell, her glass shattered, the sound marking the exact moment her world broke apart. Cold rain slammed against the empty streets as Claire stumbled out of the hotel, her silk gown soaked and clinging to her body. The limousine that had brought her there was gone. Security guards had followed Ryan's order without hesitation, escorting her out as though she were a criminal. The reporters had moved on to the next scandal, leaving her alone in the freezing darkness. Her makeup ran down her face like black rivers. Every step hurt. Her heels sank into the wet pavement. She wanted to scream, to wake up, to believe this nightmare wasn't real. But the pain in her chest and the weight of her unborn child reminded her it was. Her phone vibrated, one notification after another. Headlines were already everywhere. Claire Donovan exposed. Pregnant wife betrays tech mogul. Sister of CEO's new love involved in scandal. Her fingers trembled as she tried to call Ryan. The call didn't go through. Then she tried Natalie. Straight to voicemail. She checked her banking app. Her accounts were frozen. Credit cards declined. She had no cash, no car, no home. A thunderclap roared above her. She pressed a hand to her stomach. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here," she whispered, her voice shaking. Her body was shivering uncontrollably, and her vision blurred from exhaustion. Across the street, through the sheets of rain, she saw the glow of the Hale mansion. Her home. For a moment, hope flickered. She hurried toward it, clutching her stomach, her dress dragging through puddles. By the time she reached the gate, lightning flashed, revealing 2 security guards. "Please," Claire begged, her voice raw. "I just need to speak to my husband. I live here. This is my home." One of them shook his head, expression blank. Mr. Hale's orders. You're not allowed on the property. He's my husband, she cried. Not anymore, ma'am. A surge of panic overtook her. Please, she whispered. I'm pregnant. I have nowhere to go. The second guard stepped forward and quietly opened an umbrella, but not for her. He turned and closed the gate, leaving her outside in the storm. The lights of the mansion blurred behind her tears. She could almost see Natalie standing by the window, hand resting on Ryan's shoulder, her own sister. Her heart cracked again. Claire turned away and began to walk, one hand shielding her belly. Her feet were bleeding, the cold gnawed at her bones. She didn't know where to go. Her mother had died just 3 days earlier, and the house was being sold to cover medical debts. She was completely, painfully alone. By midnight, the storm had turned violent. A car sped by, splashing her from head to toe. The world was cruelly indifferent. Her phone slipped from her numb fingers and shattered on the sidewalk. She stared at the broken screen, the last image showing her wedding photo. Ryan smiling, hand over her stomach. Lightning flashed again, and she whispered, I will not die here. She lifted her head, her eyes fierce through the rain. Somewhere, somehow, she would rise again. But at that very moment, a pair of headlights slowed behind her, and a familiar voice called out her name. The next morning, pale sunlight slipped through the thin curtains of a small guest room. Claire opened her eyes slowly, disoriented. The last thing she remembered was collapsing on the sidewalk and hearing someone call her name. Now she was wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of cedar and coffee. Across the room, Miles Carter stood by the window, speaking quietly on the phone. His voice was calm but firm, the kind that used to make boardrooms fall silent. No, don't tell anyone where she is, he said. Yes, I'll cover the hospital bills. Just make sure she's stable. Claire tried to sit up. Pain shot through her back. Miles? She whispered. He turned, surprised but relieved. You're safe, he said softly. You passed out on the street. I couldn't just drive away. Her throat tightened. I didn't think anyone still cared. I care, he said simply. Always have. Before she could respond, there was a knock on the door. A courier stood outside holding a thick envelope. Delivery for Mrs. Claire Donovan. Miles took it and frowned. Who knows you're here? She shook her head. No one. He handed her the envelope anyway. Claire tore it open with trembling fingers. Inside were official legal documents stamped Hale Dynamics. Her name appeared under the bold heading, Notice of Investigation and Termination. She scanned the words, her pulse quickening. The company accused her of theft of intellectual property, breach of confidentiality, and defamation. The lawsuit demanded immediate forfeiture of assets, including her house, car, and bank accounts. God, Ryan, she whispered. He's suing me for everything. Miles's jaw tightened. This isn't just business. He's trying to bury you. Claire clutched the papers to her chest. He said I stole from him. But the project, the design for the biomedical lab, it was mine. I built it with him from scratch. I know, Miles said. You showed me the sketches years ago. I still have the emails. Her eyes widened. You kept them? Every single one. For the first time in days, hope flickered through her despair. But it was fragile. Because just then, her phone buzzed again. It was a message from an unknown number. Withdraw the lawsuit quietly, Claire. Sign over your rights to the company, and we'll forget everything. Refuse, and we'll prove you're unfit to be a mother. Her hand flew to her mouth. He's threatening to take my baby. Miles stepped closer, his eyes dark with anger. Over my dead body. Claire's knees weakened. She sank onto the bed, tears spilling silently. He won't stop, Miles. He has money, lawyers, the press. What do I have? He knelt in front of her. You have the truth, and me. The room went quiet, the sound of rain faint outside. Claire looked at him, really looked, and for the first time since that night, she felt a glimmer of strength return. I'll fight, she whispered. For my child, for my name. Miles nodded. Then we start today. But neither of them knew. Ryan was already preparing something far worse than a lawsuit. The rain had stopped, but the city still looked bruised under the gray sky. Miles drove Claire through downtown San Francisco in his black SUV, keeping one hand steady on the wheel, the other occasionally glancing toward her. She sat in silence, staring out the window, watching the world blur. Couples walking hand in hand, coffee shops glowing with warmth, lives untouched by betrayal. Where are we going? She finally asked. To my place, he replied. You and the baby need a safe space. Ryan's people are watching your old addresses. You can't go home. The word home stung. I don't even know what that means anymore. Miles didn't answer. He pulled into a private garage beneath a high-rise near the Embarcadero. When the elevator doors opened, they stepped into a sleek penthouse filled with sunlight, soft music, and the faint smell of fresh paint. I just moved back from Seattle, Miles said, setting her bag down. It's quiet here. You'll be safe. Claire looked around. Minimalist furniture, steel and glass. Everything screamed control, success, and loneliness. You always did like your walls white, she murmured. He smiled faintly. And you always wanted to fill them with color. For a brief second, they were two old souls remembering who they used to be. But the moment passed. Miles handed her a folder. These are all the emails and blueprints you sent me when we collaborated with Hale Dynamics. Your name is on every one of them. If Ryan's suing you, this proves the ideas were yours first. Claire flipped through the pages, her eyes widening. You really kept everything? I told you once, he said quietly. I never forget people who believe in me. She tried to speak, but emotion caught in her throat. You don't know what this means, Miles. He wants to take my child. Miles's expression hardened. He's not going to touch that baby. I'll make sure of it. He poured her tea, sat across from her, and leaned forward. But you have to be careful. Ryan isn't just angry. He's scared. When men like him get scared, they destroy everything in their path. Claire shivered. I've already lost everything. What more can he take? Your peace, Miles said. Don't let him have that too. For the first time since the gala, Claire managed a small, weary smile. I forgot how annoyingly wise you are. I prefer strategically charming, he said, grinning. They both laughed softly, but the laughter died when Miles's phone buzzed. He frowned and checked the screen. His face changed, serious, guarded. What is it? Claire asked. He turned the phone so she could see. A news alert flashed across the screen. Breaking. Ryan Hale announces engagement to TV host Natalie Donovan, calling her his true love and business partner. The blood drained from Claire's face. She sank back into the couch, clutching her stomach as tears welled in her eyes. Miles looked at her, his jaw tightening with fury. He's provoking you, he said. He wants to break you before the trial. Claire's voice trembled. He already did. But just as she whispered those words, Miles received another message. A single photo that made his blood run cold. Claire's ultrasound image, sent from an unknown number. 3 days passed. The penthouse was quiet, filled only with the faint hum of rain against the windows. Claire tried to rest, but sleep never stayed. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ryan's face at the gala, cold and cruel, and Natalie's smirk glowing under the camera lights. Miles worked day and night in his office across the hall, contacting lawyers, tracing Ryan's digital attacks, keeping the press away. Claire appreciated his silence. He never asked how she felt, because he already knew. That morning, the doorbell rang. Miles was on a call, so Claire shuffled to the door, one hand on her growing belly. When she opened it, the world stopped. Natalie stood there, flawless in a cream coat, her golden hair tied in a perfect bun, a designer bag hanging from her wrist. Hey sis, she said with a smile that could cut glass. Claire's heart pounded. What are you doing here? I came to check on you, Natalie said sweetly, stepping inside uninvited. You look tired. I'd be exhausted too, if the whole country thought I was a liar and a thief. Claire swallowed her anger. You should leave. Oh, come on, Natalie laughed lightly. Don't be dramatic, we're family. Besides, she placed a small white envelope on the table. Ryan asked me to give you this. Claire hesitated before opening it. Inside were legal papers. Again, her stomach tightened as she read, Petition for Custody Review. She looked up, trembling. He's trying to take my baby before it's even born? Natalie shrugged. Ryan's worried about the child's environment. You're under investigation, remember? He just wants what's best. What's best? Claire snapped. You destroyed my marriage, my career, and now you want my child? Natalie's smile faded slightly, but her tone stayed calm. Don't blame me for your mistakes, Claire. Ryan needed someone who understands him. You were holding him back. Claire laughed bitterly. Understand him? You don't even know what he's capable of. Oh, I know exactly what he's capable of, Natalie said, her eyes glinting. That's why he chose me. The words hit like a slap. Claire's vision blurred with rage. "You're my sister," she whispered. "How could you?" Natalie leaned in close, her perfume sharp and suffocating. "Because I'm done living in your shadow. For once, the spotlight's on me, and I'm not giving it back." Claire's breath shook. "You won't win, not this time." Natalie smiled, cold and perfect. "We already did." She gestured toward the door. "By the way, you should watch tonight's interview. Ryan and I are announcing our pregnancy plans." Claire froze. "You can't have children," she blurted, her voice trembling. Natalie's smile faltered for the briefest second before returning. "You'd be surprised what money and science can fix." She turned, walking toward the door. "Take care, sis. Oh, and try to keep your stress levels down. Wouldn't want to hurt the baby." The door clicked shut, leaving silence behind. Claire stood motionless, her hands shaking as anger boiled through her veins. Miles entered seconds later, sensing the storm in her eyes. "What happened?" he asked. Claire looked up, her voice steady but cold. "They just declared war." But outside the window, a car engine started, and inside sat Ryan, watching the penthouse with a smile that promised something far worse. The storm began just after midnight, sweeping through San Francisco with violent winds that rattled the windows of Miles's penthouse. Thunder rolled like distant explosions. Claire lay on the couch, clutching her stomach. The contractions had started an hour earlier, sharp, fast, relentless. Miles rushed from the kitchen, panic flashing across his normally calm face. "You're in labor," he said, grabbing his phone. "I'll call an ambulance." "No," Claire gasped, shaking her head. "It's too soon, only 8 months." Another contraction hit and she screamed, gripping the blanket so tightly her knuckles turned white. Lightning flashed through the room, casting her in a pale, trembling glow. "The bridge is flooded," Miles said after a moment on the phone. "They can't get through right now. We have to wait." Claire's breathing quickened. "Wait. Miles, I can't." Her voice broke into another cry of pain. He knelt beside her, his voice steady even as fear clawed at him. "Listen to me. You're strong. You're gonna be okay." Rain slammed against the glass walls. The lights flickered once, twice, then everything went dark. The power was gone. Only the sound of wind and thunder filled the air. Miles grabbed a flashlight and blankets, moving quickly. "We'll do this here," he said. Claire stared at him in disbelief. "You can't deliver babies?" "Then tonight's the night I learn," he said firmly. "I'm not letting you do this alone." Minutes stretched into agony. Sweat poured down her forehead. She screamed again, the sound swallowed by the storm. Miles held her hand, whispering, "Breathe, just breathe." Between contractions, Claire cried softly. "He wanted to take my baby. He'll never touch them, right?" "Not as long as I'm breathing," Miles swore. A crash of thunder shook the building. Somewhere, a window shattered. The storm raged harder, as if the world itself was breaking apart with her. Then a sharp cry pierced the darkness. The first baby, a tiny boy, fragile and perfect, filled the air with life. Miles's hands trembled as he wrapped the newborn in a towel. "You did it, Claire. One down." But Claire wasn't done. Her body convulsed again, pain slicing through her like fire. Within minutes, the second baby arrived. Another boy, smaller but breathing strong. She collapsed back, exhausted, tears streaming down her face. "Two?" she whispered. "Is it over?" Miles looked at her belly and shook his head slowly. "No, there's one more." Claire's scream tore through the darkness. The third baby came silently, too silently. Miles froze. The child didn't move. "Please," Claire whispered weakly. "Please, Miles, don't let him die." He rubbed the baby's back, tapped his tiny chest, whispered prayers he didn't even believe in. "Come on, little guy, come on." Seconds passed like hours. Then, suddenly, a breath, a wail. The cry was faint but real. Miles exhaled shakily, tears filling his eyes. Claire smiled through exhaustion. "All three? All three," he said, his voice breaking. "You did it." Lightning flashed once more, illuminating them. A mother, 3 newborns, and the man who refused to let her fall again. But outside, under the roaring rain, a black car idled at the curb, and inside, Ryan Hale watched the lights flicker in her window, his eyes full of something dark and calculated. A month after the storm, the city's social media feeds exploded with one headline: "Ryan Hale marries TV host Natalie Donovan in $5 million ceremony." The event took place at the Crystal Monarch Hotel, the same ballroom where Ryan had humiliated Claire. Chandeliers sparkled brighter than ever, and every luxury magazine called it the wedding of the year. Natalie wore a diamond tiara that once belonged to Claire's grandmother. Ryan bought it from the estate auction just to make a point. Photographers crowded the entrance as a string quartet played softly. Guests arrived in limousines, sipping champagne, their laughter echoing through the marble halls. To the outside world, Ryan and Natalie were the perfect couple. Beautiful, powerful, untouchable. Inside, however, tension lurked behind the glitter. "Smile wider," Ryan whispered between his teeth as the camera flash went off. "You're shaking." Natalie forced a laugh, her hand clutching his arm. "I'm nervous. Everyone's watching." "They're supposed to," Ryan said smoothly. "Tonight proves I'm still in control." She smiled, but her eyes flickered with unease. She had always dreamed of this, being adored, being envied, yet something about Ryan's tone made her stomach twist. Meanwhile, across town, Claire sat in Miles's penthouse, rocking one of the babies in her arms. The triplets slept peacefully. Noah, Liam, and Finn, tiny fragile miracles. The wedding played on the muted TV in the corner. Miles entered the room quietly. "You shouldn't watch that." Claire shook her head. I need to. I need to remember who he really is." The camera panned across the couple exchanging vows. Ryan's smile was flawless, rehearsed. Natalie's voice trembled slightly as she repeated, "For better or worse." Claire's lips tightened. "Worse will come sooner than she thinks." Miles sat beside her. "I'm gathering everything we need, financial records, leaked emails, patents. When the time's right, we'll expose him." She looked at him, tired but determined. "Not for revenge," she said softly. "For justice, for them." She kissed Noah's forehead. Back at the wedding, Ryan raised a glass to toast his new bride. "To the woman who stood by me when the world tried to destroy me, my true partner, my only love." Applause thundered through the room. Natalie smiled proudly, but as she leaned toward him, Ryan's phone buzzed. He glanced down briefly and paled. A single text glowed on the screen. "Congratulations, we need to talk about the stolen designs, MC." He quickly locked the phone, forcing another smile for the cameras. Natalie noticed. "Who was that?" she asked quietly. "No one important," he replied, slipping the phone into his jacket. But his mind was spinning. Miles Carter, the one man who could ruin him, had resurfaced. As the crowd cheered and the band played louder, Ryan leaned close to Natalie, his smile never breaking. "Enjoy tonight," he whispered, "because everything that comes next will be war." Miles muted the TV and looked at Claire. "He's already moving." Claire nodded, her eyes reflecting both fear and fire. "Then so am I." But in the lavish chaos of that wedding night, a hacker infiltrated Ryan's private server, sending the first digital spark of a scandal that would destroy everything he'd built. The morning after the wedding, the city woke to glossy magazine covers of Ryan and Natalie smiling like royalty. Headlines gushed about their perfect union. But behind that staged perfection, Ryan was already plotting his next move. His empire had cracks, and he needed someone else to pay for them. Claire was the easiest target. In the penthouse, Claire sat at the kitchen table feeding baby Finn, unaware of the storm about to hit. Miles scrolled through his laptop, tension tightening his jaw. "Something's off," he muttered. "Ryan's company servers are suddenly locked. All backup files of your designs are missing." Claire frowned. "But I saved everything on my drive." Miles looked up, his eyes sharp. "Where's your laptop?" "In my room," she said, rising quickly. She returned moments later with the silver device. Miles connected it to his computer. Within seconds, red alerts filled the screen. He cursed under his breath. "Claire, this isn't good." "What is it?" "Someone planted stolen files here. Blueprints, contracts, code, all labeled with Ryan's company seal. They're making it look like you hacked him." Her heart pounded. "That's impossible. I haven't touched that thing in days." "Exactly," Miles said grimly, "which means someone broke in." Claire stared at the window. The security camera's tiny red light blinked, the one Miles had installed for safety. But she realized with horror that safety was an illusion. "He's watching us," she whispered. "He's been watching this whole time." Miles unplugged the laptop and smashed it against the wall, pieces scattering across the floor. "Not anymore," he said. "We'll clean this up before the feds see it." Too late. An hour later, heavy knocks thundered at the door. Claire froze. Miles opened it to find two men in dark suits holding badges. "Federal Bureau of Investigation," one announced. "We have a warrant to search the premises for stolen property belonging to Hale Dynamics." Miles stepped forward calmly. "This is a mistake." The agent ignored him. "Ma'am, step aside." Claire's knees nearly gave out as they swept into the apartment. Her heart hammered while they rifled through drawers, cameras flashing. One agent held up a flash drive sealed in a bag. "We've got it," he said. "That's not mine," Claire shouted. "He planted it. Ryan Hale set this up." The agent gave her a sympathetic glance, but didn't respond. When they finally left, the apartment was in shambles. Claire sat on the floor, trembling. "He wants me in jail," she whispered. "He'll take the babies the moment I'm gone." Miles crouched beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "Then we fight back. I'll call my contacts. We'll trace the source." Claire's tears blurred her vision. "He's always one step ahead." Miles looked toward the city skyline, his jaw tightening. "Not this time. I'll make him answer for everything." Claire reached for his hand, her voice shaking but fierce. "Then let's start now." But outside the building, parked across the street, Ryan watched through tinted glass, a cruel smile forming as he whispered into his phone, "She took the bait." The next 48 hours were a blur of panic, sleeplessness, and fear. Claire barely ate. Every time her phone buzzed, she expected another threat. News outlets were already broadcasting Ryan's version of the story. Disgraced ex-wife accused of corporate espionage. Her name trended for all the wrong reasons. Miles refused to let her crumble. He hadn't slept either, pacing across the penthouse with his laptop open, phone pressed to his ear. "No comment," he snapped to a reporter before hanging up. "They're circling like vultures." Claire rocked one of the babies, whispering lullabies over the noise of rain outside. "What happens now, Miles? They have evidence. They'll arrest me." He stopped pacing, his voice low but steady. "That flash drive they found, it's fake. The metadata's wrong. Whoever planted it made rookie mistakes. I can trace it." She looked up, exhausted but hopeful. "You can prove it?" "Yes," he said. "But to clear you completely, I need access to Ryan's private servers. They're locked behind corporate firewalls and security codes I helped design years ago." Claire's eyes widened. "You worked with him?" Miles hesitated. "Before you met him, yes. He was charming back then, hungry for success. I helped him pitch his first investors." "He stole more than your ideas, Claire. He stole half my company." The revelation stunned her. "You never told me." "I didn't want to make it about revenge," he said quietly, "but he's left me no choice." He set his laptop on the table and began typing rapidly. Lines of code filled the screen. Claire watched nervously as he bypassed firewalls, tracing data trails. "If the FBI gets the wrong impression," he muttered, "we'll feed them the right one." Hours passed. The babies finally slept, the city outside swallowed by night. Then a sharp beep echoed from the laptop. "Got it," Miles whispered. "I'm inside his system." Claire leaned over his shoulder. The folder names appeared like ghosts. Project Genesis, Donovan Case, Evidence Upload. Miles clicked the last one. A string of time-stamped videos and documents filled the screen. Fabricated emails, fake financial transfers, even voice clips edited to make Claire sound guilty. Her stomach turned. He built an entire lie. Miles's face darkened. "And now we have proof of it." He copied everything to an encrypted drive. "This is enough to clear you and take him down publicly." Claire's voice shook. "Then why does it feel like he still has control?" "Because he expects us to fight," Miles said, "but he doesn't expect what's coming next." Before she could ask, his phone rang. The caller ID read unknown. He answered, switching to speaker. Ryan's smooth voice filled the room. "Impressive work, Miles. Still the noble knight, rescuing damsels in distress. I wondered how long it'd take you to break into my system." Miles's jaw tightened. "You set her up. That ends tonight." Ryan chuckled. "You think exposing me will save her? The FBI already has an arrest warrant ready. And guess whose fingerprints are on that flash drive?" Claire's blood went cold. Miles stepped closer to the phone. "You've gone too far, Ryan." "On the contrary," Ryan said softly, "I've barely begun." The line clicked dead. Silence swallowed the room. Claire looked at Miles, her eyes full of fear. "What did he mean?" Miles stared at the blank screen, his voice barely above a whisper. "It means he'd ought to make his next move, and he's using the law to do it." But outside, across the bay, Ryan stood on his balcony with Natalie beside him, holding a sealed envelope labeled "Federal Evidence, Confidential." Rain poured the morning Claire stepped into the courthouse. The gray sky felt like judgment itself. Flashing cameras lined the steps, reporters shouting her name. "Claire, did you steal from Hale Dynamics? Is it true your ex-husband is seeking custody?" She kept her head down, clutching the file Miles had prepared. Her trembling hands betrayed her fear, but her eyes burned with quiet defiance. Inside, the courtroom smelled of varnish and arrogance. Ryan sat at the plaintiff's table, sleek in a tailored navy suit, every hair perfectly in place. Natalie sat behind him in a cream dress, pretending to be supportive. When Claire entered, Ryan turned just enough to flash a polite, poisonous smile. Miles guided her to her seat. "Remember," he whispered, "you don't owe them emotion, just truth." The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, entered. Court is now in session. Ryan's lawyer stood first, a shark in an expensive suit. "Your Honor, my client, Mr. Hale, built a company worth billions. The defendant, his ex-wife, illegally accessed corporate servers, stole proprietary research, and attempted to sell it to competitors. We have undeniable evidence." He gestured to the FBI representative seated nearby, who nodded solemnly. Claire's stomach twisted. Miles squeezed her hand under the table. "Let him talk," he murmured. The lawyer continued, "Mr. Hale will testify that Mrs. Donovan not only betrayed his trust but endangered the company's future." Ryan took the stand, oozing calm authority. "Claire was brilliant once," he said, voice full of mock sadness. "But when the fame came, she changed. She wanted power, money. I tried to help her, but she—" "Mr. Hale," the judge interrupted, "stick to facts." He nodded dramatically. "Yes, Your Honor, the evidence speaks for itself." He gestured toward the projector screen. Images flashed, emails, transaction logs, recordings, all fabricated. The jury's faces shifted uneasily. Claire felt the walls closing in. For a moment, she wanted to scream that it was all lies. But Miles stood calmly, waiting for his turn. When the prosecution rested, the judge turned. "Defense?" Miles rose slowly, straightened his jacket, and approached the stand. His voice was even but cutting. "Mr. Hale, you mentioned these emails prove my client's guilt. Can you confirm the timestamps?" Ryan smiled confidently. "Of course, they're right there." Miles pressed a button on his laptop. The same images appeared, only this time additional data lines glowed red. "Interesting," he said, "because these timestamps show they were created 3 days after the alleged theft, on a computer registered to Hale Dynamics' internal server." "Meaning?" Ryan's lawyer jumped up. "Objection." "Sustained," the judge said, but curiosity flickered in her eyes. "Mr. Carter, continue carefully." Miles nodded. "Meaning, Your Honor, that the evidence wasn't discovered, it was manufactured, and we can prove it." He clicked again. The courtroom lights dimmed as a new image appeared, a security log showing the data upload originating from Ryan's personal IP address. Gasps echoed. Natalie's face went pale. Ryan stiffened, his mask cracking for the first time. "That's impossible," he said sharply. Miles's voice was steel. "You framed her, Ryan, and you did it to cover your own theft." The judge raised a hand. "This court will review the new evidence. Until then, no further actions against Mrs. Donovan." Reporters rushed toward the exits to call their editors. Claire sat frozen, tears spilling silently, not of weakness but relief. Miles leaned close, whispering, "You just won the first battle." But as they left the courthouse, a black SUV screeched to a stop across the street, and a man inside snapped a photo of Claire's baby stroller. The courthouse victory lasted less than 24 hours. By the next morning, new headlines flooded every news feed. Hale scandal deepens. DNA mystery behind Donovan triplets. Claire's phone buzzed nonstop. She didn't know who leaked it, but the words made her stomach twist. DNA. Miles arrived at the penthouse carrying a thick envelope. His expression was unreadable. "We need to talk," he said quietly. Claire froze. "Please don't tell me." "It's about the children," he interrupted softly. Ryan filed a motion demanding genetic testing. "He's claiming they're not his." Her knees nearly buckled. "Not his? How could he? He knows I never." Miles guided her to the couch. "He's desperate, Claire. The evidence we revealed yesterday cornered him. This is his retaliation." Tears welled in her eyes. "He's dragging the babies into this." "I know," Miles said, opening the envelope. "The court rushed the results. They came back this morning." He hesitated, then placed the paper on the table. "You should see for yourself." Her hands trembled as she unfolded the report. Her eyes darted across the numbers and lines she didn't understand until she reached the conclusion printed in bold. Paternity excluded. Ryan Hale is not the biological father. Claire's breath caught. That's impossible. Miles didn't speak. She looked up at him, panic rising. Then who? He swallowed hard. Claire, there's more. The secondary analysis shows a 99.9% match with me. Silence. The world seemed to stop spinning. Her voice cracked. Miles, that can't be. We haven't. I know, he said quickly. We never. This doesn't make sense. She stared at the report again, heart pounding. How could you be the father of children that never? Miles ran a hand through his hair. Remember Ryan's fertility experiments? His in vitro research project? He must have stolen my genetic data from the old lab when we were partners. He used it without consent. Claire pressed a hand to her mouth. Oh my God. That's why the results look like this, Miles said, his voice shaking. Ryan created them in a lab using my DNA and your embryos. You never knew. She stood, dizzy with rage and confusion. He used us. Both of us. Miles nodded grimly. And now he's trying to twist it into another weapon? The doorbell rang before she could speak. When Miles opened it, a delivery man handed over a small white box. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten note. Now the world knows who the real father is. Enjoy the fame, hero. R.H. Miles's jaw clenched. You leaked the results. Claire backed away, shaking. He wants to destroy you too. Then he just made the biggest mistake of his life, Miles said, eyes burning. This proves he manipulated genetic material illegally. That's federal prison time. Claire sank onto the couch, tears streaming silently. All this time, I thought those babies tied me to Ryan, but they don't. She looked at Miles. They tie me to you. He knelt beside her, voice gentle. No matter how they came into this world, they're yours, and I'll protect them like my own. But as he spoke, Ryan stood before a wall of reporters downtown, smiling into microphones. If those children aren't mine, he said smoothly, then what else has Claire Donovan been lying about? The news spread like wildfire. Every outlet repeated the same line. Ryan Hale's ex-wife bore triplets fathered by another man. Talk shows dissected it, gossip sites mocked it, and the internet turned Claire's life into a circus. She refused to leave the penthouse. Even the sound of her own name on TV made her stomach twist. Miles shut off the television. He wanted this reaction, he said. Humiliation keeps you quiet, but we're not staying quiet. Claire cradled baby Noah, her voice trembling. He's telling the world I cheated, that I tricked him. He knows exactly what people will believe. Miles paced the room, mind racing. Ryan's arrogance always leaves footprints. If he stole my DNA for those experiments, there'll be records, lab access logs, encrypted emails, prototype data. It's all somewhere. Claire's eyes flickered with anger. Then let's find them. They spent the next 2 nights digging through old files and archives. Miles broke into forgotten email servers, while Claire scoured every notebook and sketch she'd saved from their years together. The deeper they searched, the darker the truth became. On the 3rd night, Miles froze mid-typing. Found something. Claire hurried over. On his screen, a hidden folder blinked open. Project Genesis. It contained video files, contracts, and scanned signatures. Miles clicked one labeled Trial Footage 03. The video showed Ryan in a white lab coat, standing beside a research team. His voice was calm, confident. We're moving ahead with Phase 2, combining viable female eggs from subject CD with synthetic DNA from donor MC. If successful, the results will revolutionize reproductive medicine. Claire's knees gave out. CD, that's me. Miles's face went pale. And MC is me. They watched in horrified silence as lab technicians handled embryos labeled with Claire's initials. Ryan turned to the camera. This is the future of creation. Ownership begins the moment life does. Miles slammed the laptop shut. He didn't just steal from us, he played God. Claire pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. He used my body, my trust, everything we built. Miles's voice hardened. We can end him with this. It's proof of bioethics violations, unauthorized genetic use, and corporate theft. The feds will eat him alive. But before he could back up the file, the screen flickered, and then went black. A message appeared. Unauthorized access detected. System lockdown initiated. Miles cursed. He's already covering his tracks. He's wiping everything. Claire grabbed his arm. Can you stop it? I can delay it, he said, typing furiously, but not for long. Within seconds, the file self-deleted. A single line of code remained, glowing red. You should have stayed out of my world, Miles. Claire's breath hitched. He knows we found it. Miles stared at the dead screen. Then we make him pay publicly. If the evidence is gone, we'll expose the truth ourselves. Claire nodded through tears. Every lie, every theft, everything he took from me, I'll take back. Miles looked at her, admiration flickering behind the fury. Then we start by making him tell the world what he's really afraid of. But across town, Ryan stood inside his office, watching the security feed of their every move. He turned to Natalie, his eyes cold. If they want war, he said, we'll give them something worth bleeding for. The mansion that once felt like a palace now reeked of tension. Natalie wandered through its marble halls in silence, her diamond bracelet glinting under the soft light. Outside, reporters still camped at the gates, shouting her name, asking if she'd known the triplets weren't Ryan's. Each question was a dagger. Ryan had locked himself in his study for 2 days, ignoring her calls. When he finally emerged, his eyes were bloodshot, his suit wrinkled. He looked like a man unraveling, but refused to admit it. Ryan, Natalie began softly, we need to talk. The press will believe what I tell them, he snapped. They always have. She flinched. They're saying you stole DNA that you used. Lies, he interrupted, pacing the room. Carter's trying to ruin me. He and Claire are manipulating everyone. Natalie hesitated. Maybe if you just apologized? He turned sharply. Apologize? For what? For giving you everything you ever wanted? Fame? Money? My name? His voice dripped with contempt. Her throat tightened. I didn't ask for. You asked for her life, he hissed. And I gave it to you. Don't pretend you're innocent. The words sliced through her. For the first time, Natalie saw the monster she'd helped create. Later that night, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her face looked perfect, too perfect. The surgeon's latest procedure had gone wrong. Her cheek still tingled with numbness. The doctor had warned her that one more filler, one more lift could cause permanent damage. But she couldn't stop. The mirror had become her judge, and she never measured up. She traced the faint scar along her jawline. You wanted to be her, she whispered bitterly. Now, look at you. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A distorted voice spoke. You don't know what he's hiding, do you? Her pulse quickened. Who is this? Check the offshore accounts. Hale Dynamics isn't his only experiment. The line went dead. She sat frozen, staring at the phone. Curiosity burned hotter than fear. Minutes later, she accessed Ryan's private server, using passwords she'd memorized. Dozens of files appeared. Hidden research projects, shell companies, secret transactions, and one folder labeled Natalie Protocol. Her breath caught. She opened it. Inside were medical records, hers, lab reports, hormone treatments, notes from fertility specialists. One line stood out in red. Subject unfit for conception due to irreversible reproductive damage. Tears blurred her vision. He'd known. All along. When Ryan came home hours later, she waited in the dark. How long were you going to lie to me? She whispered. He didn't even look surprised. You shouldn't have gone through my files. You told me we'd have a family, she choked. You promised. He poured himself a drink. You were never going to be a mother, Natalie. You were just the image, the brand. You look good on camera. Something inside her snapped. She threw the glass across the room, shattering it. I gave up my sister for you. Ryan's eyes turned cold. Then you should have chosen better blood. Natalie's voice trembled. You'll regret that, he smirked. Doubt it. But as he walked away, Natalie opened her phone, hit record, and whispered into the camera, if I can't destroy him quietly, I'll destroy him live. Morning light spilled through the blinds, harsh and unforgiving. Ryan stood at the window of his office on the top floor of Hale Dynamics, gripping a glass of whiskey, though it was barely 9 a.m. The city stretched before him like a kingdom slipping through his fingers. Headlines glared from every monitor in the room. DNA scandal grows. Whistleblower claims Hale experimented on human embryos. He hurled the glass against the wall, shards scattering across the marble. Who leaked this? He barked. His assistant flinched. We're trying to trace the source, sir. It was a live video uploaded to multiple platforms. It's viral. Ryan froze. Live video? The assistant nodded nervously. Your wife, Mrs. Hale, broadcasted it. For a second, silence. Then Ryan's face darkened. He grabbed his coat and stormed out. Across town, Natalie sat in her dressing room at the studio, her eyes hollow. The recording had gone viral overnight. Her confession about Ryan's manipulation, his illegal experiments, the truth about their marriage. Millions of views, thousands of comments. People called her brave. They didn't know she'd cried between every sentence. When Ryan burst through the door, she didn't flinch. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. He slammed the door shut. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Yes," she said, meeting his glare. "I told the truth." "The truth?" he sneered. "You destroyed everything. Investors are pulling out. Our stock is in free fall." "Our stock," she interrupted bitterly. "You mean your kingdom built on lies?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "Do you think this makes you a hero? The world loves a scandal, but it forgets quickly. When this is over, I'll rebuild. You, on the other hand, will be nothing again." She stared at him, trembling but unbroken. "You already made me nothing, Ryan. Now I'm just showing the world who you really are." He raised his hand slightly, just enough to make her flinch, then lowered it with a cold smile. "Careful, Natalie. Without me, no one cares who you are." He turned to leave, but she said softly, "You're wrong. They'll care when they see the rest." Ryan froze. "The rest?" Natalie's lips curved into a small, tragic smile. "I saved everything. The recordings, the lab files, the accounts in your name. You taught me how to cover my tracks, remember?" For the first time, fear flickered across his face. He stormed out, shouting orders into his phone. "Find her backups. Erase everything." But the damage was done. By evening, Hale Dynamics shares plunged 50%. News anchors speculated about fraud, investors demanded his resignation, and federal investigators announced an inquiry into his research practices. Ryan locked himself in his penthouse office that night, surrounded by silence and the hum of dying screens. His reflection stared back from the dark window, haunted, broken. He reached for another drink but stopped halfway, his hand trembling. The doorbell rang. He ignored it. It rang again. Furious, he yanked it open, only to find an envelope on the floor. No one in sight. Inside was a single photo. Him and Claire at the gala, smiling before the world collapsed. Scrawled across it in Natalie's handwriting, "You built an empire on ashes. Now burn with it." Ryan sank to the floor, the photo trembling in his hand. But outside, under the glare of city lights, Natalie pressed send all on her final email, forwarding every secret file to the press and federal court. The fall of Ryan Hale had just begun. By dawn, the entire country was talking about one thing: Natalie Hale's confession video. Every network replayed it on a loop. Her tear-streaked face, her trembling voice, and the calm, devastating words that tore through Ryan's empire like wildfire. "I was blind," she said in the recording, "but truth has a way of finding light. My husband, Ryan Hale, used stolen genetic data, manipulated medical research, and lied to the world, including me." The clip had gone viral overnight. Hashtags trended across every platform. Protesters gathered outside Hale Dynamics headquarters holding signs that read, "Justice for the Donovan Triplets," and "Shut down Hale Labs." In his penthouse office, Ryan watched in disbelief. Screens around him glowed with his downfall. Canceled contracts, terminated partnerships, government subpoenas. His empire was collapsing in real time. "Get me the crisis team," he barked into his phone. "Now." But no one answered. Most of his staff had already walked out. Even his assistant had quit via text. Across the city, Natalie sat alone in a motel room, the walls plain and peeling. Her phone buzzed nonstop with interview requests, sponsorship offers, sympathy messages from people she didn't know. She ignored them all. Her revenge was complete, but victory didn't feel like freedom. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her face, once flawless on every magazine cover, now looked tired, human. "You did it," she whispered. "You ended him." A knock sounded on the door. Her pulse spiked. She peered through the peephole. A delivery man. He handed her an envelope, nodded, and left. Inside was a note written in Ryan's sharp handwriting. "You'll regret this more than I ever will." Her fingers shook as she unfolded the rest. A photo slipped out. Her, taken from across the street, just hours ago. He was watching her. Fear clawed at her chest. She began to pace, clutching her phone. No, he can't hurt me, not anymore. But deep down, she knew Ryan Hale didn't lose quietly. Meanwhile, Miles arrived at Claire's penthouse carrying a thick stack of printed reports. "It's happening," he said, breathless. "The FBI launched a full investigation. Natalie's leak opened every door we needed. Ryan's finished." Claire held one of her babies close. "What about her?" "She's protected," Miles replied. "Federal custody if she wants it. She gave them everything, even the offshore accounts." Claire exhaled slowly, relief mixing with pity. She destroyed him, but she destroyed herself too. Back at the motel, Natalie packed her things, her nerves fraying. She wanted to disappear, start over, but before she could leave, headlights cut through the thin curtains. She froze. A black car idled outside, engine running. She moved toward the door, whispering, "Ryan, don't do this." Her phone rang, an unknown number. She answered. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You think you've won, Natalie? You've only made it easier for me to let go." "Ryan, please." The line went dead. Outside, the car engine revved, then screeched away. Natalie's heart hammered as she sank onto the bed, tears streaming. She didn't see the email notification appear on her laptop, an automatic forward she'd forgotten to disable. It contained all of Ryan's final financial records and one chilling attachment labeled Insurance Policy, Claire Donovan. And as the file sent itself to every major newsroom, the world prepared for a revelation that would shock even Claire herself. The morning light crept across the floor of the penthouse as Claire rocked Finn in her arms, unaware that the world outside was erupting again. The television hummed in the background, muted, until Miles rushed in, his phone pressed to his ear, his face pale. "Claire," he said sharply, "turn on the news. Now." She grabbed the remote, unmuting the screen. The headline blazed in red. Leaked files reveal Ryan Hale's secret insurance policy. Claire Donovan listed as target. Her breath caught. What does that mean?" Miles threw a folder onto the table. "The files Natalie leaked, they contained more than we expected. Ryan had contingency plans for every person he feared could destroy him. Lawyers, partners, journalists, and you. He paid private investigators to follow you since the night of the gala." Claire's skin turned cold. "He knew where I was?" "He never stopped watching," Miles said grimly. "There are surveillance photos, emails, and one directive titled Project Trinity. That's what he called you and the babies. He planned to take them, legally or otherwise, once he was cleared." She shook her head, disbelief battling horror. "No, he can't. He's ruined. The FBI..." Miles cut her off. "He's cornered. Men like Ryan are most dangerous when they're losing everything." Outside, thunder rolled across the bay, though the sky was clear. Claire stood still, every nerve on fire. "So what do we do?" Miles stepped closer. "We go public, with your truth, the part he can't twist anymore." "My truth?" she repeated weakly. "You never stole from him. You created the foundation of his empire, and he used your name, your designs, your ideas. It's time the world heard your story." He set up lights and a camera on the coffee table. Claire hesitated, looking down at her trembling hands. "Miles, I don't want fame. I just want peace." He met her eyes. "Peace doesn't come by hiding. It comes when the lies stop winning." Minutes later, the camera light blinked red. Claire took a deep breath, her voice soft but steady. "My name is Claire Donovan," she began. "I was accused of stealing from the man I loved. The truth is, I built the very company he used to destroy me. He stole from me, my work, my name, my dignity. But he will never steal my children." Her voice cracked slightly, then strengthened. "I'm not a thief. I'm a mother, and I will not be silent anymore." When she finished, silence filled the room. Miles switched off the camera, his eyes glistening. "That," he whispered, "was power." He uploaded the video under her name. Within hours, it exploded online. Viewers flooded the comments with support. "We believe you. Justice for Claire. Truth wins." For the first time in months, Claire felt something shift inside her. Not victory, but release. She walked to the window, looking out at the city that had watched her fall and was now witnessing her rise. Miles joined her, quiet for a moment. "You just changed everything," he said. Claire smiled faintly. "No," she whispered. "I just told the truth." But as her video climbed past 1 million views, a dark figure in a black SUV watched from the street below, a phone pressed to his ear. Ryan Hale's voice was calm, dangerous. "If she wants war, then war it is. And this time, it's personal." 2 weeks later, the gates of Hale Dynamics were chained shut. Federal agents had seized everything: servers, research files, even Ryan's prized sports cars. He was arrested in front of cameras, handcuffed in a tailored suit, shouting that it was all a conspiracy. The photo went viral, the fallen king of Silicon Valley. Now, the clang of iron doors echoed through the corridors of the federal detention center. Ryan Hale, once untouchable, stood in line with other inmates, stripped of his designer life. His reflection in the dull metal door looked like a ghost of the man he'd been. He kept his chin high, pretending it was temporary. "They'll realize who I am," he told himself. "They'll need me back." But every step deeper into the cell block whispered the same truth. No one was coming to save him. Meanwhile, Claire sat in the penthouse nursery, rocking baby Liam. The boys were growing fast, healthy, beautiful. Her video had reached 10 million views, and for once people saw her not as a scandal, but as a survivor. She'd even received an invitation to speak at a women's innovation conference about resilience and ethics in technology. Miles entered quietly, holding his phone. "He's in custody," he said. "The judge denied bail." Claire looked up, emotion flickering across her face. "Is it wrong that I feel nothing?" He shook his head. "It's not wrong. It's closure." She exhaled. "Then maybe I can finally breathe." But across town, inside the concrete walls of the prison, Ryan wasn't breathing peace. He sat on a narrow cot staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with calculations. The guards whispered his name like a headline, and even the inmates knew his story. He hated the pity in their eyes. That night, a guard slid an envelope under his door. No name, just a symbol he recognized instantly, the same logo from his old security firm. He tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "You still have leverage. The game isn't over." Attached was a flash drive. Ryan smirked. He plugged it into the prison's computer during his limited library hour, bypassing the restricted network like muscle memory. On screen appeared dozens of files, hidden accounts, encrypted data, and one labeled Plan B, the Donovan footage. He clicked it. A grainy video loaded, a night vision clip showing Claire, pregnant, collapsing outside the Grand Horizon Hotel months ago. 2 security guards stood by, refusing to help. Ryan's voice could be heard ordering them to remove her from the property. He leaned back, a slow, sinister smile forming. "Insurance," he whispered. "They wanted war? Fine." Days later, a journalist received an anonymous email containing the same footage. The headline exploded within hours. "New evidence questions Claire Donovan's story." At the penthouse, Miles stormed in, laptop in hand. He's doing this from prison, somehow. Claire watched the clip play across news sites, her stomach twisting. "He won't stop," she whispered. Miles's voice hardened. "Then neither will we." He called his contact at the bureau. "Find where that upload came from. Trace every byte." Outside the window, the city glowed with lights of progress and greed, the same lights that had once crowned Ryan Hale. But in a dark corner of his cell, Ryan smiled at the chaos on a smuggled phone. "You took my freedom," he murmured, "but I still control the story." Natalie hadn't left her motel room in days. Empty coffee cups covered the nightstand, and the blinds were drawn tight, shutting out the noise of the world she'd once craved. Every news channel, every social feed was filled with her name. The sister who helped destroy a millionaire, the woman who turned on her own blood. She kept watching the same clip of Ryan being led away in handcuffs. Each replay brought a different ache. Anger, guilt, relief. The man she'd thought she loved looked small now, powerless, yet still terrifying. Even in chains, Ryan Hale seemed capable of reaching through screens to ruin her. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. A voice she hadn't heard in months filled her ear. "Natalie?" Her throat tightened. "Ryan, you did this," he said calmly, "but you're going to fix it?" She laughed bitterly. "You're calling from prison to threaten me? That's pathetic." "No," he said, "it's strategy. You think you've exposed me, but I still have the story's ending. You want peace, Natalie? Help me send the truth out before she does." "Claire doesn't lie," Natalie snapped. "You do." He chuckled lowly. "We both know you're not as innocent as you pretend. Remember the contracts? The shell accounts in your name? You helped me hide the money, sweetheart. The feds will love that." Her blood ran cold. "You wouldn't. I already have," Ryan said. "Unless you want to go down with me, you'll do exactly what I say. Bring me the original Genesis drive." "I don't have it," she whispered. "You do," he said sharply. "Check your safety deposit box." The line went dead. She sat frozen, the sound of rain growing louder outside. Then she remembered the small metal key she'd kept hidden in her jewelry case. Trembling, she grabbed her coat and left the motel. The bank lobby was quiet when she arrived. A clerk escorted her to the back. The safety deposit box opened with a faint click. Inside was a single flash drive labeled Genesis Final. She stared at it, her pulse hammering. If Ryan got this, he could twist the narrative again. But if she destroyed it, the truth about his experiments, about Claire's children, might never be fully proven. For the first time in her life, Natalie didn't know which side she was on. Hours later, she stood outside the federal courthouse in the rain. The flash drive felt heavy in her palm. Her reflection in the glass doors showed a woman she barely recognized, exhausted, broken, but finally honest. A familiar voice called out behind her. "Natalie." Claire stood there, soaked from the storm, her eyes filled with something that wasn't hatred, only sadness. Natalie's lips trembled. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "I know," Claire said softly, "but meaning isn't enough. Do the right thing now." Natalie hesitated, then placed the drive into her sister's hand. "This ends with you, not him." Claire nodded. "Then let's finish it." For the first time in years, Natalie smiled, small, tired, but real. "Take care of them," she whispered. Lightning flashed. A car skidded around the corner, tires screaming. Claire shouted her name, but it was too late. The impact was instant. The flash drive hit the ground beside Natalie's still hand, rain washing the label clean. And as Claire knelt beside her sister sobbing, she realized Natalie had finally done the one thing Ryan never could. She'd given back her humanity. The world seemed to stop the moment the car hit. Screams echoed, tires screeched, then rain swallowed the sound. Claire knelt beside Natalie, her trembling hands pressing against her sister's chest. "Stay with me," she cried. Blood mixed with rainwater, running down the pavement like red ribbons. Natalie's eyes fluttered open. "Claire, don't cry," she whispered. It's okay now." "Don't talk," Claire begged, gripping her hand. "An ambulance is coming." But Natalie shook her head weakly. "You have to finish it, the drive. Everything's on it." Claire's tears blurred her vision. "I've got it. You're safe, okay? You're safe." Natalie's lips curved into a faint smile. "For the first time, maybe I am." Her chest rose once more, then went still. The sirens arrived too late. By morning, every headline screamed, "Natalie Hale dead in tragic accident." News stations replayed clips from her confession video calling her a complicated hero. Crowds left flowers outside the courthouse. For the first time, the world mourned her not as a villain, but as a woman who'd tried to make things right. Claire sat in a hospital corridor, holding a police evidence bag. Inside was the flash drive, the last thing Natalie had ever touched. Miles arrived, his coat drenched from the rain. "Are you okay?" "She died saving the truth," Claire said softly. "I have to make sure it means something." Miles nodded. "We'll get everything decrypted and sent to the bureau. Her sacrifice won't be in vain." He glanced at the medical file the officers had handed Claire along with the evidence. It was Natalie's personal folder, recovered from the wreck. The corner was torn, but one phrase caught his eye. "Prenatal treatment, confidential." Claire frowned. Natalie wasn't pregnant. Miles hesitated. "It says she was under treatment 3 weeks ago." They exchanged a look, both sensing another buried secret. He opened the file carefully. Inside were ultrasound images dated only days before Natalie's death, and a report confirming a 5-week pregnancy. Claire's breath caught. Oh my God, she was pregnant. Miles turned the page. The father's name was blacked out, but the patient ID matched a file from Hale Dynamics database. "She used his clinic," he said grimly. "Ryan's lab." Claire shook her head in disbelief. "He experimented on her too." "No," Miles said, scanning further. "This isn't his experiment. It's his mistake. Look." He pointed to the DNA analysis on the final page. "The father isn't Ryan Hale. It's someone else, his own assistant, Mark Evans." The truth hit like thunder. Natalie had been carrying the child of Ryan's trusted protege, the same man who'd leaked financial data to the press when the scandal broke. Claire's voice was barely a whisper. She wasn't trying to protect herself. She was protecting that baby. Miles closed the folder. "Then we protect it now. That child deserves a world Ryan can't poison." Outside, dark clouds parted, sunlight piercing through for the first time in days. Claire clutched the folder to her chest. She wanted redemption, she murmured. "Maybe this was it." Miles nodded. "And maybe it's the final piece we need to bury him for good." But deep inside his prison cell, Ryan received a smuggled note slipped under his door. A single sentence that made his pulse spike. "She was pregnant, and it wasn't yours." 3 months passed. Winter melted into spring, and for the first time in a long time, the city didn't whisper Claire Donovan's name with scandal. They spoke it with respect. Her public testimony, backed by the files Natalie had given her, had officially dismantled Ryan Hale's empire. The courts seized his assets, his patents were transferred to government custody, and Hale Dynamics was no more. But Claire had no interest in revenge anymore. She wanted renewal. She stood in front of a sleek glass building on Market Street, sunlight glinting off its mirrored surface. The sign above the door read, Trilogy Design Group. The name made her smile every time. Trilogy, for Noah, Liam, and Finn, for the 3 miracles born in a storm, for the 3 chances at a new life. Inside, the office buzzed with energy. Architects, engineers, and young designers moved about with purpose. Miles had invested the seed funding, but the vision was hers. Every wall was lined with bright art and open space. No secrets, no locked doors. As she walked through the main floor, her assistant handed her a tablet. Claire, the New York Times just published the feature on your comeback. You're trending again, but for all the right reasons this time. Claire laughed softly. Good. Let's keep it that way. In the conference room, a group of employees waited for her to speak. She set the tablet aside and smiled. I know what it's like to lose everything, she said. That's why this company isn't just about buildings. It's about rebuilding people's faith. Every project we take must help a community, not just a client. Applause filled the room. Claire felt warmth rise in her chest, a feeling she thought she'd lost forever. After the meeting, she stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the city. Miles joined her, his hands in his pockets, the wind tugging at his tie. You did it, he said. You built something new from the ashes. Claire looked down at the bustling streets below. Maybe that's what life is, building again and again until it finally feels right. Miles smiled. I like that. So what's next for the great Claire Donovan? She chuckled. Motherhood, business, maybe a full night's sleep. He laughed quietly. And maybe dinner with an old friend who happens to think you're extraordinary? Claire turned to him, her expression soft but playful. Are you asking me out, Mr. Carter? He shrugged. I'm just saying, rebuilding works better with 2 architects. For the first time in months, she blushed. I'll think about it. Their laughter mixed with the hum of the city below. Later that evening, she returned home to the boys. Noah was stacking blocks, Liam scribbling on paper, Finn giggling at his reflection in the window. She knelt, gathering them into her arms. You're my greatest design, she whispered. The city lights sparkled outside, bright, alive, unbroken. Claire looked up, tears shining in her eyes, but this time they were tears of peace. Miles's words from earlier echoed in her mind. You built something new from the ashes. Yes, she whispered to herself, and it's only the beginning. But as she tucked her sons into bed, a letter slid under the front door. No return address, only one line written in Ryan Hale's handwriting. You may have rebuilt your world, Claire, but I'm still in it. The next morning, Claire found the letter on the floor where the moonlight had left it the night before. The handwriting was unmistakable, sharp, precise, cold. You may have rebuilt your world, Claire, but I'm still in it. Her hands shook as she read it again. A chill crawled down her spine. She hadn't heard from Ryan in weeks since his sentencing, but the thought of him reaching out from prison made her stomach turn. She showed it to Miles as soon as he arrived at the office. He scanned the page, jaw tightening. He's trying to scare you, he said. That's all this is, empty words from a man who's lost everything. Claire forced a weak smile. Maybe, but it still feels like he's here somehow, like his shadow hasn't left. Miles met her gaze. Then I'll make sure that shadow never touches you again. The intensity in his voice caught her off guard. For months, Miles had been her rock, steady, calm, unshakable. But lately, something deeper lingered behind his eyes. She'd seen it in the way he looked at her when she held her children, in the quiet moments after long days when neither of them spoke, yet everything was said. That night, he stayed late at Trilogy Design. The office was quiet except for the rain tapping against the glass. Claire stood at the balcony, lost in thought, when she heard his footsteps behind her. You should go home, she said softly. It's been a long week. I'll go when you do, he replied, his voice gentle but firm. She turned to face him. The city lights reflected in his eyes. Miles, you've done enough for me. You've given me back my life. You don't have to keep protecting me. He took a step closer. Maybe I'm not doing it because I have to. Her breath caught. The air between them grew still. Miles exhaled slowly, his voice low and raw. Claire, when I lost my company to Ryan years ago, I thought I'd never trust anyone again. Then you showed up, this brilliant, stubborn, fearless woman who believed in people when you had every reason not to. You didn't just rebuild your world, you rebuilt mine. She blinked, unable to speak. He smiled faintly. I love you, Claire. I think I've loved you for longer than I've even realized. The words hung in the air like a confession years overdue. Claire felt her heart race, fear, hope, disbelief colliding at once. Miles, she began, but emotion caught in her throat. He shook his head softly. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't from pain this time. You've always believed in me when no one else did. That's something I'll never forget. He smiled sadly. Then that's enough. They stood together in silence, the city shimmering below, two survivors bound by everything they'd lost and everything they'd rebuilt. Claire finally whispered, Maybe it's time I stop being afraid to live again. Miles's eyes met hers. Then start now. And as thunder rolled softly in the distance, Claire stepped forward, closing the distance between them, her hand finding his, steady and sure, for the first time without fear. 6 months into his sentence, Ryan Hale's name still hadn't vanished from the headlines. The world loved his downfall too much to forget it. Magazines printed his mugshot on glossy covers. Documentaries dissected his rise and ruin. But Ryan wasn't finished. Not yet. Inside the cold walls of Redwood Federal Penitentiary, he sat across from a journalist, Olivia Grant, a sharp-eyed reporter from the Chronicle who had begged for this exclusive. Her recorder blinked red between them. Mr. Hale, she began, her tone professional but wary. Why agree to this interview now? Ryan leaned back, smirking. Even in an orange jumpsuit, he radiated arrogance. Because people love a good redemption story, Olivia. And who better to tell it than me? She raised an eyebrow. You were convicted of fraud, bioethics violations, and criminal manipulation. Most would say you've already told your story with your actions. Ryan chuckled softly. You journalists love painting villains, but you never ask why. Do you think empires build themselves on kindness? Olivia didn't blink. So you're saying your crimes were justified? I'm saying, he said slowly, that the world wanted miracles and I delivered them. The line between genius and monster is written by whoever controls the headline. For a while, that was me. He leaned forward, eyes sharp. But they forgot something. Stories evolve. The hero of the next chapter isn't always the same man who fell. Olivia glanced at her notes. Do you regret what you did to your wife? For the first time, his smile faltered. Claire, he said quietly, as if the name itself stung. She was the only one who ever saw me before I became this. He gestured around the sterile room. I regret that I turned her love into a weapon. But regret doesn't erase genius. Is that what you call it? Olivia asked. Genius? He smirked again, recovering. Call it survival. People worship success until it reminds them how small they are. Her expression hardened. You hurt a lot of people, Ryan. You ruined lives. He tilted his head. And they're stronger for it. Claire's thriving, isn't she? I made her who she is. Olivia's pen stopped midair. You think she owes you? I think she became me, he said coldly. She learned how to fight because I forced her to. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Olivia asked, What about Natalie Donovan? Her death was tragic, he interrupted sharply, then softened his tone. She was fragile. She always mistook attention for love. I tried to teach her strength, but she wasn't built for the fire. Some would say you lit that fire, Olivia said quietly. Ryan smiled faintly. Maybe, but she made her choice. The interview ended 30 minutes later. As guards escorted him away, Olivia packed her notes, shaken by the calm in his voice. She stopped the recorder, only to realize the light was still blinking. The last words it captured were Ryan's whisper, meant for himself. They think I'm finished, but I'm just rewriting the ending. That night, Olivia published her piece, Ryan Hale, the man who regrets nothing. It spread like wildfire. But hours later, in a dim prison hallway, a guard handed Ryan a sealed envelope. Inside was a photo of Claire and Miles together, and on the back, in neat handwriting, it read, You lost the world, but she found hers. The auditorium was alive with light and anticipation. Cameras flashed, journalists whispered, and every seat was filled. It had been a year since Ryan Hale's empire crumbled, And now the world had turned its eyes to a new name, one spoken with admiration instead of fear. Claire Donovan. The giant screen behind her read Trilogy Innovations, Humanity in Every Blueprint. The event wasn't just another product launch, it was a symbol of rebirth. Claire stood backstage, smoothing her white blazer, heart pounding beneath calm professionalism. Beside her, Miles adjusted his tie, smiling. "You ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be," she said, exhaling. "You know, there was a time I thought I'd never walk onto a stage again, at least not without someone tearing me apart." Miles's gaze softened. "Then make this one count for everyone who ever thought you couldn't." She smiled, then stepped into the light. The applause thundered. Claire blinked under the spotlights, the same way she had years ago at Ryan's gala, but this time she wasn't someone's shadow. She was the story. "Good morning," she began, her voice steady and warm. "A few years ago, my name was connected to scandal, betrayal, and loss, but today it stands for something else: resilience, truth, and second chances." The crowd hushed, drawn to her sincerity. "When I founded Trilogy," she continued, "I wanted to prove that innovation isn't just about machines or money, it's about compassion. Our new technology uses microbiotech systems to protect premature infants, a project inspired by my 3 sons born fighting to breathe." She paused as the screen behind her displayed an image of Noah, Liam, and Finn smiling in matching blue shirts. "They taught me what survival really means." The room erupted in applause. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras zoomed in on her proud, tearful smile. Miles joined her on stage, introducing the project's key partners: doctors, engineers, and advocates. "We call it Project Hope," he said, "a collaboration across continents, designed to give every child a chance to live, no matter where they're born." Claire took his hand briefly, a gesture unnoticed by most but meaningful to both. Together, they represented everything Ryan had tried to destroy: honesty, unity, love. When the Q&A session began, a reporter raised her hand. "Miss Donovan, after everything you've endured, what drives you to keep creating?" Claire thought for a moment, then smiled. "Because creation is the opposite of destruction, and after you've seen how cruel the world can be, the greatest act of defiance is building something beautiful." The audience rose in applause. Some wiped away tears. Backstage afterward, Miles handed her a glass of champagne. "You were incredible," he said. "You've done it. You've changed the narrative." Claire smiled, watching the crowd still buzzing beyond the curtain. "No," she said softly. "We did." They stood together, the sound of applause echoing like thunder, not the storm that once brought her pain, but the kind that marked new beginnings. Outside the venue, the city skyline gleamed under the golden afternoon sun. Billboards lit up with her face and the words, "Claire Donovan, the future begins with compassion." But in the quiet of a prison library hundreds of miles away, Ryan Hale watched the broadcast on a flickering TV screen, his reflection faint in the glass. He didn't blink, didn't move, only whispered, "She's finally outgrown me." Then, slowly, he smiled. Perfect. The morning after the global launch felt different. The city outside Claire's window shimmered in soft gold, the kind of light that made everything look cleaner, newer, like forgiveness itself. For the first time in years, there was peace in her heart. The ghosts of the past still lingered, but they no longer ruled her. Downstairs, the boys laughed over cereal, their small voices filling the apartment with warmth. Noah was building a tower from blocks, Liam argued that it needed more windows, and Finn was giggling at their reflection in the glass door. Simple moments, the kind she once thought she'd never have again. Miles arrived, carrying a paper bag and 2 coffees. "Breakfast hero reporting for duty," he joked. Claire smiled as she poured the coffee into mugs. "You're spoiling us." "You deserve it," he said softly. "You've rebuilt everything, Claire. Your name, your family, your peace." She glanced at the framed photo of the 4 of them on her desk. "It still feels unreal sometimes, like I'm living someone else's happy ending." Miles shook his head. "No, you earned this one." Later that day, they took the boys to the beach, the same stretch of coastline where she had once dreamed of escaping the world. The waves rolled gently now, no longer the angry sea she remembered the night her life shattered. She walked barefoot along the shore, the sand cool beneath her feet. Miles followed, the boys chasing seagulls ahead. For a moment, time stood still. She looked back at the footprints trailing behind them. one set merging into another, and realized she wasn't walking alone anymore. As the sun began to sink, painting the sky in orange and violet, Miles joined her, hands in his pockets. "You know," he said, "I never imagined peace could look like this." She smiled faintly. "Neither did I. For so long, I thought peace meant forgetting everything. But it's not forgetting, it's living despite it." He nodded. "And you're doing that beautifully." They stood together in silence, watching the boys run in and out of the waves. It was the kind of quiet that didn't need words, the kind born from survival, from scars that had finally stopped hurting. Claire turned to him, her voice soft. "Miles, do you ever wonder if everything that happened, even the worst parts, had to happen so we'd end up here?" He thought for a moment. "Maybe. Sometimes destruction clears space for something better. You taught me that." She smiled, her eyes glistening. "And you taught me to trust again." He looked at her then, really looked, and saw not the woman broken by betrayal, but the one who had risen from it stronger, luminous. As twilight deepened, Noah called out, "Mommy, look, stars." Claire tilted her head toward the sky. The first stars were appearing, scattered like promises across the darkening horizon. "Make a wish," she said softly. Miles whispered, "Already did." They stood there as night wrapped around them, a mother, a father in spirit, and three little souls who'd turned pain into purpose. But far beyond the shore, in a dim prison cell, a guard discovered an empty cot and a missing prisoner's file. Ryan Hale was gone, and somewhere, in the quiet hum of the night, a storm was beginning again. The news broke just after sunrise. Ryan Hale escaped from federal custody. Authorities confirmed he'd vanished during a transfer to a medical facility, leaving only an empty stretcher and a trail of confusion. The nation buzzed with speculation, headlines screaming across every screen. When Miles saw the alert, he raced to Claire's apartment. She was already awake, standing by the window, her face pale but calm. "I know," she said quietly before he could speak. "He's out." Miles exhaled, gripping the back of a chair. "The FBI thinks he had help from the inside. They're searching the coast, airports, everywhere." Claire's eyes didn't move from the horizon. "He won't run forever. Ryan doesn't flee, he finishes. Then we'll be ready," Miles said firmly. "You're not alone this time." Later that afternoon, federal agents installed security outside her home, but Claire refused to hide. She went to the office as usual, determined to keep living. "If I let him take my peace again," she told Miles, "then he wins." That night, as the building emptied and rain began to fall, a delivery arrived. A small package, no return address. The guard hesitated. "Miss Donovan, this was left at the front desk for you." Her heart pounded as she carried it to her desk. Miles hovered nearby, wary. Claire opened the box slowly. Inside was an old cassette tape and a note written in Ryan's familiar hand. "Every story deserves an ending. This is mine." Miles found an old recorder in the archives. The tape clicked, static humming, before Ryan's voice filled the room. Calm, almost reflective. "Claire," he began, "if you're hearing this, then I've already disappeared. Don't bother looking, I've made peace with the world, or at least with what's left of it. You always said I couldn't feel remorse. Maybe you were right, maybe I never learned how. But I've learned something else. Legacy is heavier than guilt." Claire's hands shook. His voice was older, softer, haunted. "I wanted control," he continued. "Over life, over love, over you. But control is just fear dressed as power. You took that from me, and I hated you for it. But now I see, you didn't destroy me, you exposed me, and that's the only truth worth leaving behind." He paused. "I won't be coming back. The world doesn't need another redemption arc. You won, Claire. You gave meaning to all the ruins I left behind, so live. That's the only apology I can offer." The tape clicked off. Silence filled the office. Not heavy, not frightening, just final. Claire closed her eyes, a single tear sliding down her cheek. "He's gone," she whispered. Miles wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Then let's make sure what he left behind becomes something better." Months later, a foundation was born. The Donovan Hale Initiative for Ethical Science. It funded research for children's medicine and bioethics reforms worldwide, proof that even from tragedy, good could rise. On a bright morning, Claire stood before an audience, her sons beside her. "This isn't a story about revenge," she said. "It's a story about redemption, the kind that comes when pain meets purpose." Applause rose like thunder. That night, at the beach where it all began, Claire watched her boys run through the waves, laughter echoing across the water. The horizon glowed gold, the world finally at peace. She whispered into the wind, "Thank you, Ryan, for teaching me that sometimes the end is where life truly begins." So, that's where the story ends. But hey, my wonderful friends, you're still here, aren't you? If you've made it this far, it means something in this story touched your heart in its own quiet way. Maybe it reminded you that life breaks us, but it also rebuilds us. Piece by piece, stronger, truer, calmer. Like Marcus Aurelius once said, the obstacle is the way. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every storm is not there to destroy you, but to shape you. Claire's journey isn't just fiction, it's a mirror. We all fall. We all get lost. But healing begins when we stop chasing revenge and start choosing peace. So if this story spoke to you, take a second to breathe, forgive, and rebuild. And hey, if you felt something real tonight, give this video a like, share it with someone who needs a little light, and don't forget to subscribe. Our next story might be the one that finds you.